Brown Dust was a game I was quite fond of back in the day, even before they changed their name to Brave 9 for the English-speaking audience. I love the artwork, the story, the themes, and the strategic aspect of its gameplay, not to mention how generous the game was with its currency. The sequel proves more than worthy of carrying on the franchise. It felt like the game was deliberately designed to hook people in with various activities to do, such as cooking, exploring dungeons, meeting NPCs, and of course, grinding for levels. It built upon what made Brave 9 unique, particularly its combat system, and streamlined it to be a lot more accessible to players of all skill levels. So, join us today as we show you guys why Brown Dust 2 is a game that's just too good to be left on the phone. This is the video adaptation of our review article at Game 8. The link is in the description below. Despite having a completely new scenario, Brown Dust 2 shares the same world and even the same timeline as Brave 9. That's why it's not strange at all for the two games to have a shared cast. Familiar faces such as Liz, Beatrice, Jaden, and Maria will be frequent sights as the player dives into the game. Brown Dust 2 introduces itself as a game within the original Brave 9 series, played by the protagonists Ellen and the mercenary captain. So, in a way, you're playing a character from Brave 9 who is playing Brown Dust 2. The game further reinforces this by presenting every main story arc as a cartridge similar to those used by the NES, called Story Packs. This setting allows the game to host practically unlimited possible plots. This ranges from the standard fantasy setting to the wild and wacky, such as a Japanese school horror plot or an adaptation of a Fallout game. The latter is presented to players via the character packs, game cartridges containing stories of that nature. In a way, those character packs can be interpreted as fanfics of the original story and cast. They are a blast to play and contain some of the game's most challenging content, forcing players to adapt their playstyles due to being forced to use story-specific characters. However, despite Brown Dust 2 gratuitously tapping into their character pool from the previous game, it doesn't mean that newcomers have to first play Brave 9. Brown Dust 2's story is entirely self-contained. Players with varying experiences with the franchise can enjoy the stories all the same. And what stories they are! It's obvious when writers have a lot of fun writing the story, and it really shows in this game. Brown Dust 2's combat plays on a grid-based layout. Each turn generally starts out by selecting a character, choosing their action to perform, setting their turn order, and then positioning them on the grid. This is repeated for all the characters you have in the field. Upon ending your turn, each character will perform their actions following the turn order you decided. Depending on your selected skill, the action may involve attacking the enemy directly in front of them using the specified moves. The game's strategic aspect revolves mainly around using your character's positions and manipulating your enemies. To emphasize this, every character has at least one skill that knocks your opponent in a particular direction. This is necessary because each character needs an appropriate amount of SP to use their skills. Since SP is a scarce resource only gained by attacking normally or through an allowance at the start of every turn, it encourages players to use knockback effects to make the most out of their skill's area of effect. To further incentivize this, the enemies in Brown Dust are often quite powerful, even with the weakest monsters being able to deal damage that scales with the player's HP. It's not rare for regular encounters to result in a wipeout when enemies knock your tanks to the back line and deal heavy damage to your mages. Because healing tends to be very scarce, the game encourages players to end matches as quickly and efficiently as possible. Every match thus becomes a punishing chess match between the player and the opponent, where a single wrong move can result in a quick loss without any possibility of making a comeback. Character placement and turn order balance offense and defense, so the player must place immense care into every character's position on the grid and the order in which they move. Brown Dust 2 shares this philosophy with its predecessor. Choosing to play the game on auto can be quite problematic. The dumbest bricks AI can't be relied upon for any form of tactics and will opt to use skills simply based on the turn order. Don't be surprised if you see the AI use AoE skills on single enemies or heal characters with full health. The automatic pathing in dungeons isn't that good either, and you'll often witness the AI failing to avoid hazards and running into exploding enemies. Brown Dust 2 possesses some of the most impressive visuals I've come across in a mobile game. The character art is awe-inspiring, and the environment and background effects are beautifully crafted. It's an exercise in unapologetic nostalgia. nailing an aesthetic that emulates vintage RPGs with modern technology. It's a game that will make you feel like a kid again. I mean, come on! The game features NES cartridges. Each location is meticulously designed to feel like a natural counterpart of what it's meant to be in the real world. There are forest paths that wind around groups of trees and not through them. Caves suffering from intermittent blasting would sometimes dislodge large rocks from the ceiling and deal damage. The game also features some of the best music and sound effects I've heard in a mobile game for quite some time. The music in particular is simply mind-blowing. Not only does the soundtrack provide the perfect ambiance to each location, but they also made sure to include appropriate background noises and Foley sounds. The sound effects in combat are also incredibly well made. Clashes feel very weighty, as though each blow was made with an honest effort, and yet it avoids being grating to the ears. Explosions are exciting to trigger with the right volume too, especially when multiple bombs are triggered in quick succession. Overall, the audio may be this game's crowning achievement.
Huh?
It enhances every experience in the game, yet remains distinct enough from everything else such that tunes are both memorable and game-defining. It really feels like an old console RPG brought to the modern day. Characters in Brown Dust 2 join the party by obtaining their costume. This can be done using multiple methods, such as having the character join you through the story mode, recruiting them when they visit the inn using consumable contracts, and of course, pulling their costumes through the gacha. We're gonna dive a bit deeper into the details of the game's gacha system here, so you can skip to this section of the video if you just want to hear the gist of it. Brown Dust 2 has 3 different types of gacha banners, each with different rates to pull 5-star items. All 3 banners use the same form of currency known as Daya. So you have the costume pickup banner where you can obtain costumes that we just talked about, the exclusive gear pickup banner where you can get the event character's unique equipment, and the integrated draw banner which contains every costume and gear in the game. The 5-star rates for these banners are 3% for the costume pickup banner, 5% for the exclusive gear pickup banner, and also 5% for the integrated draw banner. While there isn't much incentive to pull on the integrated draw banner due to the low chances of getting something you specifically want, the costume pickup banner with a 3% 5-star pull rate is likely the most important and the most relevant one for most players, as this is the one that can give you a new character to play. The game features a spark system, where each pull gives the player a point. Getting the 200 points needed to claim the copy of the event costume will cost the player around 40,000 Daya, which is about $600 US. That is an absolutely insane amount of money regardless of how reasonable the rates are. Furthermore, even if you get a 5-star pull, the chances of snagging the event costume is a mere 50%. That's about a 1.5% chance. But you might think, fine, there's a 1.5% chance to get the event costume from the costume pickup banner. Isn't that better than most mobile games? Genshin and Honkai Star Rail's 0.6% 5-star rates are much worse, right? But the thing is, games like Honkai Star Rail and Genshin Impact have both a soft and hard pity implemented in their gacha, with the former starting at the 75th pull and the latter triggering on the 90th. Brown Dust 2 has none of that generosity. While the rates are decent enough with a 3% 5-star drop chance on the costume pickup banner, there's always a chance that 100 pulls won't get you a single 5-star, let alone getting the event costume itself. Furthermore, completing daily and weekly missions doesn't give any Daya. The game only gives a single draw ticket after finishing 10 weekly missions, which is downright atrocious. Actually, as of a recent update, the issue was remedied, making Daya easier to obtain now. You can get 60 Daya for completing all daily quests, and 200 for completing all weekly quests, which is a very welcome change. But the previous point was still true when we reviewed it, so we're leaving it in. On top of that, the game actively encourages its players to not only get multiple copies of a costume, but also to get multiple costumes for the same character. This is because duplicates of a costume will upgrade a character's skill designated to that costume. The benefits vary from dealing greater damage, lower SP costs, and lowering the cooldown for that skill. As you can see, the improvements are often very drastic, and it's frustrating to see how difficult these are to come by. Value for money is the one point Brown Dust 2 falls behind in. Despite its decent drop rates, the slow economy and incentive to gacha unfortunately make the experience a mild disappointment. Despite its shortcomings, Brown Dust 2 still manages to build upon its predecessor's success by fine-tuning its gameplay, story, and visuals to the next level. The game features deep RPG gameplay that belongs more in a console than on a phone, as well as a wide variety of stories that put your characters into unfamiliar yet wholly entertaining scenarios. We're giving Brown Dust 2 an 8 out of 10. Brown Dust 2 is a game that RPG enthusiasts won't want to miss. But what do you guys think about Brown Dust 2 so far? Do you think it's one of the best games in the App Store right now, or is there something else you'd rather recommend? Let us know down in the comments. Also, be sure to check out the written version of this review linked in the description below. We'll see you guys in the next one.